morning, everyone, and welcome to our final presentation of the morning. My name's Lucy. I'm responsible for a lot of analytics at Let's Do This. And so today, I'm super excited to share with you what data can tell us about the state of representation in our industry. So to get started, I want to introduce why we feel qualified to give this presentation today. Let's Do This has a ton of data. Since our inception, we've powered over 5 billion entries. Those entries span across multiple geographies, namely the UK and North America. And to provide a rich and comprehensive analysis today, what we've done is borrowed survey insights from Running USA Global Running Survey, who actually surveyed 7,000 running participants last year from North America, as well as a large group of international participants. Today, I'm going to talk to you about three things. First of all, we're going to talk about how the typical participant has changed over the past 4 years. The second thing I'm going to talk about is the fact that participants have actually gotten a lot more young recently, and I'm going to deep dive into the qualities of what define this new group of younger participants. And to wrap it up, I'm going to leave you with 3 key pieces of advice on how do we meet the needs of this modern, more diverse participant. So let's get started, and to do so, I want everyone to cast their mind back to 2021. We were just starting to see the return of in-person races, and I'm going to ask, what did our typical participant look like in 2021? Well, to be fair, he probably looked a bit like Dom. You can see Dom there in the top corner wearing his lovely Volt-coloured singlet. And why was Dom our typical participant? Well, he was 41, he identified as male. He actually pretty much used his desktop computer to register for events. He's been running for approximately 10 years, very serious competitive runner, and has done a bunch of marathons. Okay, so now let's, fast forward again to present day. We're in 2025, and our typical participant looks a little bit different. What does our typical participant look like now? Well, in fairness, it probably looks a bit more like me. So meet Lucy, she's 29, identifies as female, would never think to use her desktop computer to register or browse for events. It's phone only. She started running recently after finding a run club on Instagram, and she's working up to completing her first half marathon. So Dom's the past, and I'm the future. And just kidding, Dom, we love you. So that was a bit of fun, and actually I'm 31, so sadly my 20s are behind me. But from a median statistic basis, this is true. Participants are getting much more younger and more likely to be identifying as female. So for the next few slides, I'm going to share some data to back this up, and I'm also going to talk about some amazing initiatives that we've seen in the past most recent years that have been designed to improve representation in the industry. First, a major trend that we've seen in the past few years is that run clubs and run crews have absolutely boomed. This is the Google search trends for the terms run club. It's grown over 5x in the past 10 years, but most of that growth has occurred in the past 4 years. I'm not surprised to hear this, to be honest, because whenever I open up TikTok or Instagram, I hear the phrase, run clubs are the new dating apps. It's almost become a cliche. But more important than being the new type of dating apps, run clubs and run crews have introduced us to a new type of participant. And a perfect example of this is Nazrin's She Runs that we heard from just before. They're supporting a large group of ethnically diverse women to enter the London Marathon this year, which is just an amazing initiative. We've also seen event organizers making major impact in this space. The Black Trail Runners, who Let's Do This are super proud to partner with, is a perfect example of an event organizer who's driving the industry forward. Founded by Sabrina Pace-Humphreys, who we're lucky enough is going to join us this afternoon for the fireside chat, Black Trail Runners is aimed to promote ethnic diversity in the trail running space, and their flagship event, Black to the Trails, is the world's most ethnically diverse trail running event. 83% of participants are people of color, and a similar percentage are female. We also heard from Threshold just before, who have done their part and making sure the industry is also more diverse when it comes to various abilities. So we heard from Ed just before. They surveyed women and found that 54% of women surveyed said they'd be more likely to tackle an ultra if they knew walking was an option. So what did they do? They made very visible their walker-friendly cutoff times. Now, it would be remiss of me not to mention the explosion of younger participants we've seen over the past 5 years. This bar chart shows the proportion of participants who are in their 20s, and we can see it's gradually increased for both the UK and the US year over year. And this is a major part of why we're seeing the typical participant shift from Dom to Lucy. What's interesting about this new group of participants is that they're much more likely to be identifying as female. This is age and gender data for the past year of participants on Let's Do This. And what's interesting is that you can see this group in their 20s are the most likely to be identifying as female. 51% of participants in their 20s identify as female. What's more is Running USA in their survey found that women, as opposed to men, are more likely to increase their race participation over the next year. So all indications suggest that female participation will continue to rise. Alongside seeing more female participation, particularly among those in their 20s, we're seeing an increase in those who are not cisgender. So those who are transgender, non-binary, non-gender conforming, for example. And this is an increase from years prior, where 2% of respondents were not cisgender. Many event organizers have started to do simple things, such as using inclusive language on their registration forms. So when it comes to the gender question on the registration form, you can swap answers such as male and female to identifies as male, identifies as female, and also add a non-binary category as well. These are simple things, but for this 6% of participants, it's a major step forward to making them feel more included in the industry. Now, I want to deep dive into perhaps the most significant trend we saw on those recent slides, which is the growth of younger participants. I want to ask the question, how can data help us support them as we supported the DOMs of 2021? And to do so, we have to understand what are the qualities of this new wave of younger participants. Well, the first thing to know is that young participants love to show up in groups. On this chart here, we have the share of participants by age group that register with at least one other person. You can see 7% of participants in their 20s register with at least one other person, which is double the rate of those in their over 60s. Registering with another person is just one way you can attend an event in groups. There are multiple other ways. Another example of this is using the Let's Do This invite feature, which we've got an example of on the right-hand side. Once you finish the registration process on Let's Do This, the booker will be prompted to share an invite with their friends so they can attend the event with the booker. We've actually found that people in their 20s and 30s are almost twice as likely to respond to invites from their friends than older generations. Given how much young participants value attending with others, it's no surprise they're also drawn to local communities. Research from Strava backs this up. In 2024, running clubs on Strava saw a remarkable 59% increase in participation. It's clear that being part of a community is becoming a core part of the experience in running for many. Another key trait of young participants is that they tend to register late. This chart shows the share of entries given to people in their 20s at a given stage of the sales cycle. So to take an example, 19% of entries sold over 12 months to race day go to people in their 20s. Whereas when we're 0 to 3 months out from race day, 25% of entries sold in this time frame go to people in their 20s. The upward trend suggests that just young people are more likely to register late. Now, for event organizers, this can be daunting because there are obviously operational challenges from having a late surge in entries. So what do we recommend you do? Well, create irresistible early bird offers. And so you get those younger people registering earlier than they otherwise would. And if you supplement this with regular price increases throughout the sales cycle, that will continue to encourage young people to register earlier than they otherwise would. Last year, the typical event organizer on Let's Do This, well, the typical event, in fact, ran 2.4 price rises. Let's aim to bring that to at least 4 going forward to offset the impact of these late surges in registrations. So we've seen that participants are getting younger, more female, and more diverse. They behave differently from the DOMs of 2021. They're showing up in groups, taking part in run clubs, and being more likely to register for events late. So I'm going to ask the question, how do we better meet their needs? How do we meet the needs of the modern participant? To wrap it up, I'm going to leave you with 3 pieces of advice. Firstly, let's commit to collecting more ethnicity data. In the past 12 months, 23 event organizers that Let's Do This works with collected ethnicity data. That's a lot, but then when you consider the fact that we actually worked with over 200 event organizers in the past 12 months, it's not that much. And so as a result, only 55% of participants shared their ethnicity. The reason that this is important is that the more data we collect, the better we can understand who's registering and who's missing, and the better analysis we can do to understand what is going to create more diverse events. I'm strongly suggesting that you start collecting this data today to build a more inclusive and diverse future. Second up, tap into local communities as a powerful acquisition channel and a real source of insight. Building relationships with local groups is also great for enhancing diversity. In fact, the Running USA Global Runner Survey found that 45% of respondents said that they believed that community outreach was the best way to promote diversity, whether that be reaching out to local running groups, schools, faith organizations, or community centers. Having all these relationships can help you reach underrepresented audiences and shape a more inclusive event experience. Finally, we need to emphasize that all abilities are welcome. We saw that many respondents of the Threshold survey didn't realize that walking was even an option. This is also true for potential participants of the much well-loved and known parkrun. A recent study last year found that emphasizing that walking was an option in parkrun was also key to creating a more diverse participant group. Today, parkrun celebrates the fact that average completion times are actually increasing year over year. And this isn't because we're all just getting less fit, it's because they're catering to a more diverse range of abilities. So let's learn from our friends at Threshold and Parkrun, and let's make it clear that walking and other abilities are welcome. I think we can all agree that whether you're in the US or the UK right now, it's a pretty difficult time for underrepresented communities. I'm so proud of all the efforts we've heard about this morning, but we can all agree there's so much more work to do. This is not just an ethical consideration, it's a financial one too. Key groups like Gen Z are so much more likely to attend your event if you're being inclusive. So when you leave and go home today and you're on the bus or on the tube or whatever it may be, I want you to ask yourself, what are you going to do to make your event more inclusive and diverse? So together we can all bring the industry forward. Thank you.